She didn't find the road. She stole it. Meet Dominika Bolt, a rogue Pathfinder daredevil who drives a carriage through time and space, pulled by 4 phantom horses, and who has a habit of taking roads the world has forgotten. These lost trade routes, vanished cities, and paths don't exist on any map, but with the right driver, they still lead somewhere. And Dominika can drive them. It's fast, it's dangerous, and if you ride with her, you're not just crossing distance, you're cutting through pieces of history that never fully went away. But here's the problem. The first time she took that ride, she wasn't alone. Her crew didn't make it back. Not because they died, but because the road kept them. And now, those same roads are starting to show up again, which means one of 2 things. Either Dominika is about to find her crew, or something else already has. And welcome, traveler, to the Tavern on the Morrow, where all come together at the threshold to adventure. Here you will find resources for Dungeons & Dragons or Daggerheart, or plausibly any other fantasy game system you are running in terms of story and character. I'm your host, Ben Grimm. For now, I've been debating whether I want to keep that pseudonym or not. I may go ahead and tap into my shapeshifter archetype and change that up at some point. But for now, let's say Ben Grimm. Not too long ago, I took a trip with my daughter to Prague. It was some bonding time that I was really looking forward to having. And she really enjoyed the city. I really enjoyed the city. We had a wonderful time. She even told me on our flight home that she wants to live there. And so I chalked that up as a success. We did a lot of great things there, explored the city, did a lot of the routine things like the astronomical clock and various alchemy themed stuff that we had fun with, sort of kitschy stuff. And I definitely want to base several of my characters and adventures on that trip because we had such a good time. And that's where this character is inspired by. Now, I'm not going to lie. Before I get into some of the, mythologically and historically inspired ideas, I'm going to jump on a Bolt ride that I took. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Europe too much, the version of Uber that they have there is called Bolt. And frankly, I think it's a little bit better than Uber. But I had one rider in particular who really stood out to me. Her name was Dominika. Now, first and foremost, she stood out to me because she was achingly beautiful. But the other thing that I thought was sort of noteworthy about her is it was one of those rides where I didn't feel my life was in danger, because sometimes those European drivers, they whiz around a little bit tight and fast. She got around at a comfortable rate, and I also sort of appreciated the efficiency with which she got us to our destination. So she was a very good Bolt driver, on top of being stunningly beautiful. And so as I came back and started thinking about characters I wanted to make, I wanted to build a character inspired by her. I also wanted to capture some of the essence of Prague as best I could in some of these themes that I work with. So I wanted to capture an element of time and magic because that city has an ancient, timeless, historical quality to it. And I wanted to somehow come up with a way that a driver could sort of fit into that. And I also started thinking, in a fantasy world, while certainly some people would get around with a horse and carriage for practical financial reasons, perhaps, there would most likely be various magical alternatives available, especially in big cities. And that's kind of where Dominika comes in, because it's not just a matter of her driving a horse and carriage around, but I wanted these things to have a very strong magical theme to them, to tap into some ideas like phantom steeds pulling a carriage along. And how would that come about? Because Dominika essentially is just a low-level rogue, so how would a character like that have come into possession of an artifact or a relic of this sort of significance? And there would, of course, be some mystery to that. But yeah, I wanted to work in themes of time, themes of history, themes of getting lost, because one of the things my daughter and I most enjoyed when we were in Prague was, frankly, just getting lost in some of these twisting, turning, and labyrinth alleys and streets, and it was just a beautiful place. And so, without further ado, I introduce you more to Dominika Bolt. We turn now to the road outside the tavern, where night begins to give way to morning. The trees stir, but the road itself feels strangely still. Then, without sound, a black carriage is simply there. Its wheels turn in silence. 4 phantom horses take shape from mist: green, blue, red, and violet, glowing faintly as they stand at rest. At the reins sits a blonde-haired woman, leaning forward slightly, lantern casting a cold blue light across the road. Dominika Bolt has arrived. The carriage door creaks open on its own, and she waits, calm, amused, as if she's exactly on time. Dominika Bolt has a presence that lands a moment before she does. Not loud, not dramatic, just impossible to ignore once noticed. Her hair is a vivid flowing blonde, always half loose, catching light like gold. It moves even when the air doesn't, framing a face of clean lines and sharp confidence, high cheekbones, steady gaze, and a mouth that rarely hides its amusement. She smiles often, but it's never idle. There's always a thought behind it, usually one she hasn't shared. Her eyes are a cool gray, bright with motion and intent. They don't just look, they assess, linger, understand. When she focuses on someone, it feels like she's already decided something about them. She dresses for movement, a fitted dark coat with brass buttons, worn but well kept, over practical layers and high boots. Everything is functional, but nothing is careless. Even her gloves show use without ever looking neglected. In motion, she's all momentum. She leans forward when seated, reins loose but controlled, handling them with easy precision. When she steps down, she doesn't hesitate. She lands and moves in the same breath. Even at rest, she seems coiled, like she's already halfway to her next decision. She gestures freely, speaks with her hands, and closes distance without asking. Her laughter comes quick and bright, often at the worst, or best, possible moment. There's always a sense she's enjoying herself. Even now. Especially now. The night she took the reins. No one remembers who took the job. That should have been the first warning. A carriage, they were told, waiting outside the city past the dead lanterns. No guards, no questions. Just take it. There were 5 of them. Only one didn't hesitate. They found it exactly where promised. Black, polished, still. No driver, no horses, no tracks in or out. Something's wrong, someone said. Yeah, Dominika replied, already stepping forward. It's too easy. The others held back. She didn't. Dominika climbed up, took the reins, and for a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the air shifted. Mist curled into shape. Horses, if that's what they were, stood waiting, silent and half-formed, eyes like distant stars. The cold settled in, deep and hollow. Behind her, someone swore. Someone ran. Dominika, get down! She glanced back once, saw the fear, smiled anyway. Relax, she said. I've got it. She flicked the reins. The world gave way. The road bent into something else. Thin, wrong, endless. The lanterns died. The night stretched open. The carriage didn't move forward so much as through. Someone screamed. Then silence. She came back alone. Just before dawn, rolling into the city like nothing had happened. Same carriage, same quiet wheels, same steady grip on the reins. They lost their nerve, she said when asked. And the carriage? That smile again. Mine. If anyone presses her, really presses, she'll pause just long enough to matter. Then say, low and easy. You ever take a road that doesn't care where you meant to go? And just like that, she's already moving again. People think Dominika Bolt drives fast. They're wrong. She doesn't drive fast. She drives elsewhere. There are roads the world forgets, old trade routes buried under forests, city streets from places that no longer stand, paths worn deep by thousands of footsteps, then erased by time, fire, or simple neglect. They're gone as far as anyone can tell. But not completely. Somewhere beneath what is, those roads still linger, faint impressions pressed into the bones of the world. They remember where they led. They remember who walked them. They remember how to be roads. Dominika's carriage finds them. It doesn't tear through space or vanish in a flash. Instead, the world shifts, quietly, almost politely. The road ahead softens, blurs at the edges, and something older settles into place. A cobbled street becomes smooth and wide, lined with buildings that shouldn't exist anymore. A dirt path stretches into a long-forgotten caravan route, marked by broken stones and half-seen figures moving in the distance. Nothing changes all at once, but suddenly, you're not where you were. Each of Dominika's horses looks like it was pulled from a different piece of something half remembered. Their forms are mostly solid at a glance, strong, well-built, unmistakably horse, but the details never quite hold. Their manes drift like smoke in slow water, their edges fraying into mist, hooves striking the ground without a sound as faint trails of colored light spill and fade behind them. Each one carries its own glow. The green horse is dim and eerie, like foxfire in a deep forest, flickering along its flanks and pooling in its eyes. The blue horse is cold and steady, like distant starlight, giving it a calm, almost watchful presence. Red is restless and pulsing, embers breaking off with each movement as if it burns without heat. And purple is soft and shifting, its form the least stable, fading in and out like it isn't fully committed to being seen. They don't breathe, don't snort, don't tire. But they listen. Not to the reins, but to Dominika herself. The carriage keeps you anchored. The carriage is a long, black lacquered coach, its surface polished enough to catch reflections that don't always match the world around it. Silver trim runs along its edges, worn smooth in places, and its wheels turn in complete silence no matter the ground. A faint, cold blue lantern hangs at the front, casting light that seems to reveal more than it illuminates. Up close, the wood feels solid, but the longer you look, the more it gives the impression that it's only partially present, like it belongs as much to memory as it does to the road beneath it. Inside, things still make sense. Time moves forward, your thoughts are your own. The world, strange as it looks beyond the windows, can't quite reach you. Outside is different. Out there, the road remembers more than it should. Shadows repeat the same motion over and over. People appear at the edges of vision, fragments of lives long finished, playing out moments that refuse to fade. Buildings stand whole where they should be ruin, or ruin where they should be whole. You can step off the carriage. You can walk those roads. But the longer you stay, the harder it is to remember that you don't belong there. Dominika never explains this directly. She just drives. One hand on the reins, the other resting easy, lantern casting that cold blue light across the path ahead. She leans forward slightly like she's listening, not to the horses, not to the wheels, but to the road itself. She doesn't force it. She nudges it. And the road answers. Sometimes it answers cleanly. A straight path, a quick crossing, in and out before anything has time to notice. Sometimes it doesn't. The route bends, landmarks shift. The air grows heavy with something old and watching. The lantern flickers, and the road ahead feels less certain. Those are the rides she enjoys the most. Her crew found that out the hard way. The night she took the carriage, the road didn't just open, it surged, reached, pulled. They didn't die. They were scattered. Caught in different pieces of what used to be, roads that don't connect anymore, places that don't lead anywhere, walking paths that never end, or circling moments that never quite finish. Still out there, still moving, still part of the road now, whether they meant to be or not. Dominika doesn't talk about that. Not really. If it comes up, she shrugs it off, says they ran, says they couldn't handle it. Then she flicks the reins and the carriage slips away into another forgotten path, like the question never mattered in the first place. But every now and then, when the lantern light hits just right, you might see her glance down a road she didn't take. Just for a second. Like she's checking if something is still there. Plenty of roads out there, she'll say, easy as ever. Most people just don't know how to find them. Then she smiles, leans forward, and drives on. I teach screenwriting, and one of the things I love to focus on when I teach character is goals. I kind of harp on it over and over and over again. That's one of the reasons I try to weave in decent goals into these characters that I've been making for Tavern on the Morrow. Dominika's goals are, of course, specific to her. And what I find interesting about her is in generating her, this idea of stories being something that can be bartered or traded and sold really jumped out at me. And I think down the road, I may do some things to develop this idea of the story market, a place sort of in between different realms and different dimensions where stories, information about people's lives, but in a narrative form is traded back and forth and is a kind of currency. Anyway, because Dominika deals in this space and often travels past and through the story market, she has, of course, had dealings with some of the people there. And she knows the value of a good story. And so one of her goals is chasing down the next good story. And it kind of helps build this idea of a very eager and enthusiastic person, a young woman who is really getting ahead of things rather than waiting things to happen to her. And that's why, when given the path, a choice between an easy road and a hard road, Dominika will typically choose the hard road, which of course is a little bit different than my experience with the real Dominika in Prague, who took the quicker route. But this Dominika is going to go the other way. She is going to pick the more difficult path if that's a choice that's presented to her. And she certainly gets more excited when the difficult path is presented to her, because what she is doing is she's chasing down the next big story. She is looking like a reporter. She is hungry for a tale, but she's not a reporter. She is a carriage driver. And so in that sense, she's almost like a barkeep, someone that you tell your tale to, but she takes it and she uses it as currency. Not in a malicious way, and certainly doesn't sell it to people that she believes would use such the information in a malicious form, but part of how she succeeds in this realm in between, a product that she can bring to the story market when she visits. Dominika is also a restless soul. She strives to stay in motion. And one of the worst things you can do to Dominika is keep her in one place at one time. And so, very quickly, if you use her as an NPC, what you'll find is that she'll always want to be rushing to the next thing. And that's a very sort of specific goal in the moment. But in a larger sense, it also speaks to her restless spirit. Like, she sleeps in her carriage. She doesn't have a home that she goes to. She is born of the road. She lives on the road. She's got a little setup where at night she'll just pull up and sleep under the carriage or inside of it if the weather's poor. This is someone who greatly values mobility and freedom and is always seeking the next goal. So she doesn't necessarily mind staying at a tavern because that's transient, and she's always looking to move. So freedom first for Dominika Bolt, always on the move, and I think that fits her name and personality pretty well. Which is not to say that she doesn't have a larger vision or ambition for herself, because after all, she has, as far as she can tell, discovered some sort of network of roads and pathways that are extraordinarily valuable and a great resource for her in terms of freedom, but also in terms of income. And she wants to figure out how she can best control these roads, this pathway, this sort of space in between space that only she so far seems to be able to access with this magical carriage that for whatever reason chose her. She wants to own this road. She wants to be really the only one. She wants to monopolize it, essentially, because she also knows that any time too much traffic sort of falls into this space, it starts to unravel, it starts to unwind, it starts to become undone. So she wants to own it, control it, A, to protect it so that she can keep using it, B, so that she can maintain this high level of freedom and to increase her own place and standing in the world financially and personally. So she is part of why she accumulates these stories. Part of her interest in the story market is learning enough about this space so that she can better dominate it, essentially, and not in a not in a menacing way, not in a villainous way, but in some ways as a, like, this is a mine, a proprietorship kind of way that it can only handle so many people, and frankly it's hers by default for finding it first. Some thoughts on ways that you can effectively roleplay Dominika Bolt. One thing you might want to consider is, you want to use your body when embodying a character, because as I try to talk about whenever I teach directing, so much of delivering a line comes from the physical motion of the body adopting character. And so one thing that I really help, now I lean forward to get closer to my mic, but when playing Dominika, you're going to want to do that. You really want to lean forward and sort of lean into the characters and lean into the question with a kind of enthusiasm. Again, this is a character who likes to be on the motion, who likes stories. And so she's very interested in the people that she interacts with, and she's very eager to move forward. And that sense of momentum should carry into the weight of her words. So you really want to, well, I'm not going to keep doing it with the camera being as it is, but lean forward with your body to really capture that energy that Dominika presents. When presented with danger, um, when presented with danger, I really think you want to embrace the idea of Dominika thinking of it as a choice, not a threat. To her, danger is something to sort of seek out. Now, she's not stupid, but she knows the value of stories. And to that end, she knows that the dangerous stories tend to be the more interesting stories. We don't really listen to someone's boring day. We listen to someone's interesting day. And danger tends to be interesting. And so when she hears a choice or learns of a choice that presents threat, she's going to be like, let's do that thing. And her response to, a scary problem is not, that's scary. It's, that's interesting. So think about Dominika as looking at, as you improviser, always wanting to sort of push to see, you know, is that a story or is that real danger? As a character who's on the move and who's always looking to make interesting things happen, whenever she hears the characters talking about something that she finds boring, dull, or too simple, or maybe too efficient, she might interrupt them quickly, and she will frequently interrupt anytime she hears boring plans being made because she's going to lean her weight into the exciting plan, the adventurous plan, the one where things are likely to go wrong and require a lot of improvisation, but can also result in a great regaling and laughter and other sort of fun camaraderie type events afterwards. So she does interrupt, not in a rude way, but in an enthusiastic way. And especially when she senses that maybe they're veering off into a path too safe, too routine, too dull, when there is a much richer, more vibrant, more dangerous path to be taken on the other side. Though she's not terribly old, Dominika has that I've been around the block kind of mentality, and quite literally she has. She has been into different dimensions. She has traveled much of the world as a result of her steeds and carriage's ability to move quickly through time and space in this profoundly efficient way. She is a high demand courier because people who know what she can do know that she can deliver goods and people really fast. And so she has been all over the world. She has been to all kinds of different places, and she has experienced all kinds of different danger and has escaped from those events because of the speed of her steeds and carriage. And for that reason, she has a lot of stories, and she likes to treat things like stories. So she will often be like, oh, that reminds me of this, or that reminds me of that time. Oh, that's a lot like this other thing that happened to me once. Um, and even in the moment, she'll often try to reframe things like a story. She's not a bard. I've built her as a rogue, but she's got that bardic tendency to want to frame things as a narrative as much as possible and as frequently as possible. Because she has been around so much and because she has seen so much, she has a casual attitude about things that other characters, especially lower level characters, might find extraordinary or difficult. She'll be very casual about ghosts and phantoms and orcs and other things. You get into the more elaborate things like time distortion and the powerful undead, and these other sort of extraordinary events that might affect an entire world. And she'll look at it as like, okay, well, that's just another Tuesday for me. She, as much as she seeks adventure, the result of that is she has achieved in seeking a lot of adventure, and so she is familiar with a lot of adventure, and so she can be very casual about danger and other problems, and about the impossible. Like nothing, there will be no situation where Dominika will say, well, that can't be done. She is a solution oriented person, and so whatever radical idea seems, though highly improbable it might be, that's the one that she's going to embrace, and she's going to do it with a kind of casual confidence, secure in the knowledge that surely it will get done, if not by the way we planned it, then through some ridiculous hijinks that we embrace in an improvised style moment in the heat of that trial and conflict. So she is an enthusiastic character, always ready to try things, eager for the dangerous road, and very sort of playfully casual about the threat and danger and the size of the kinds of problems that the characters may or may not encounter. It starts small. A sighting, a voice in the fog. Someone swears they spoke to a man who hasn't aged in years. One of Dominika's old crew. She shrugs it off, until the next report includes a detail only she would know. That's when she stops smiling. The truth is that her crew is still out there, lost along fragments of road. But they're not alone anymore. Something has changed. There's another carriage on the road now. Cruder, louder, wrong. People are vanishing more often. Routes are tangling, overlapping in ways they shouldn't. The road itself is starting to come apart. And Dominika? She hates that other driver immediately. Not just for being there, but for doing it badly. Because this driver isn't just traveling the forgotten roads. They're dragging people onto them and leaving them behind, and forcing traffic where there should be none, and pushing lost souls, like her crew, deeper into places they were never meant to go. And then there's this place where it all connects, a hidden gathering known only to those who know how to look, the story market, a place where stories are currency, where memories can be bought, identities can be rewritten, an entire past shaped and sold. And lately, pieces of Dominika's story have started showing up there. The night she took the carriage, details about her crew, roots only she should know, which means someone, somewhere in that market, knows how to find the lost. Or worse, control them. Because this isn't coincidence. The rival driver isn't acting alone. They're working with, or being used by, someone inside the story market. Together, they're exploiting the instability of the road, harvesting the lost, turning people into stories, stories into currency, and currency into power. And Dominika's crew, they're not just missing anymore. They're valuable, personal, rare. They're becoming assets. At first, she treats it like any other problem. Annoyed, curious, maybe even a little excited. But when it becomes clear her crew is involved, something shifts. She still jokes, still pushes the ride too fast, but now, she's choosing her routes more carefully, listening more closely. And for the first time, she's not entirely sure she's the one in control of the road. And that's where you come in. Tracking sightings of her lost crew across unstable paths, racing or confronting the rival driver, finding a way into the story market, bargaining with or stealing from those who deal in memory and identity, and in the end, making a choice. Do you rescue the lost, rewrite what happened to them, or accept what they become? Because on these roads, not every journey ends the way it began. So, in summary, some of the things that you might have occur with Dominika as an NPC with your party, some of the more basic ways you might approach this is, I think the obvious one is a high-speed chase in which her carriage is being pursued by perhaps her rival, perhaps people who want to steal it. The trick there is you need to construct some sort of scenario where the people trying to get her carriage have the means on some level to try to catch it or snare it in some fashion. So perhaps they've set up a magical trap to stop it from moving, an ambush style thing, or they have some sort of facsimile carriage that allows them for a short burst to keep up with her. And so you can be racing along side by side, battling as they try to secure her much more sort of vibrant and flexible mount or carriage, the one that really they seek because their little prototype is not going to cut it. Another possibility is, of course, Dominika trades stories on the story market. She tries to do it on the up and up, tries to not get too personal with it, but certainly she's aware of the value of these things. And when she finds out her own stories are being bartered and traded and against her will, despite the fact that as a rogue, she's done a little bit of this herself, she's going to be very antsy about that. She's going to want to put a stop to any sort of individual, whether they're doing it nefariously or whether just doing it accidentally, who is selling her information. And so that's a chance to get the players into this story market, whatever that ends up being. We'll figure that out down the road. But this story market, this abstract space, this space in between where strange beings trade tales, get your players, have them show up there, see if they can figure out who it is that's selling Dominika stories, what they're up to, why they're doing it, and probably put a stop to it. Her crew was left in this in-between space. They were left on the roads, wandering sort of in endless circles, magically sustained, perhaps through some sort of time loop where they don't age, they don't get hungry, and certainly they have a very clear memory of being abandoned there by Dominika. They may want saving. Maybe they've stumbled upon something where they don't want saving. She had a crew of other thieves that she worked with. She did a lot of high-profile jobs and some low-profile jobs. They had a bit of a thing going in terms of being a teammates, but you know they're thieves, so there was always that possibility that one of them might betray the other, and that's how some of them might perceive Dominika. Others might be perhaps in some strange way grateful because they found something of value there. But certainly one of the plot hooks that you could sort of play with is getting Dominika and her crew back together, how they feel about her. Perhaps some of them are very angry and want revenge. Perhaps some of them simply seek escape and need her help or something for her to do that will allow them to escape. Perhaps some of them have been lingering and actually know something and have a new kind of job to offer her. Or maybe some of them want to take the very thing that they originally went to get, and maybe they want the phantom steeds and the carriage for themselves. And as was mentioned earlier, the road, if other rival drivers begin to use it, begins to destabilize. For whatever reason, it doesn't handle a lot of traffic very well. And so Dominika knows that, as much as there is great potential for profit in expanding and becoming the leader of a network as opposed to just an individual driver, she's also extremely cautious of the danger to the road itself that could create. So one thing she might be looking for from a higher level party is, do they have insight or knowledge into how to stabilize the magic in the in-between, such that a way that additional drivers could be found, additional carriages could be created, and a network of travelers that could really transform the entire nature of the world, because transportation of goods and people is one of the things that's really going to solidify a global civilization. She knows that. She's not stupid. And so if she can figure out a way to stabilize these roads, obviously she's going to protect them for herself first, but if she'll definitely be interested in sending adventurers out and paying them well and giving them the resources they need that she can provide, that would allow them to figure out some sort of mechanic for stabilizing this very, very special place that allows for this fantastic adventure. We return now to the road outside the tavern. The morning fully settled in. The carriage is gone. The world resumes easily, voices from within, footsteps on the road, the ordinary rhythm of the day. Yet something lingers. Faint tracks that don't quite hold. A trace of cold in the air where none should be. And just for a moment, in the reflection of a window or a puddle, the shape of a black carriage where nothing stands. Then it's gone. Somewhere down another road, one long forgotten, Dominika Bolt rides on. And for those who stepped inside, the adventure has just begun.